We often honor soldiers as heroes, steel statues of courage. Gary Cooper was such a soldier. And more than that, he was a great cinematic icon, a Hollywood legend who shaped the image of the ideal man on screen through his immortal roles. But that very greatness inadvertently hid a truth behind his resolute, invincible exterior. He was fighting silent battles within his own soul. These silent demons haunted him from the battlefield, quietly gnawing at the life of this talented soldier and artist. This article will delve into the hidden corners of Gary Cooper's life, pulling back the curtain to discover what truly happened when the cameras stopped rolling and the war had faded away. Gary Cooper's illustrious career. Before his inner demons are revealed, it's essential to understand just how monumental Gary Cooper was on screen and how his life unfolded. Gary Cooper wasn't just an actor. He was an icon, a legend of Hollywood's golden age, defining the image of the ideal American man on screen for decades. Born Frank James Cooper in 1901 in Montana, Gary Cooper's childhood was deeply connected to rural life, learning to ride horses and hunt skills that would later become invaluable assets in his cowboy roles. He briefly studied art at Grinnell College, Iowa, but fate led him to Los Angeles in the mid-1920s with hopes of becoming a cartoonist. However, his striking appearance, 6 feet 3 inches tall, a handsome, rugged face, quickly caught the eye of filmmakers. He began his career as a stuntman and in uncredited bit parts in silent films before changing his name to Gary Cooper and gradually establishing his stature. The late 1920s marked a turning point as Cooper transitioned into a star. With the advent of sound films, his warm, deep voice, calm demeanor, and natural acting ability captivated audiences even more. He quickly became one of the most sought-after leading men, starring in a string of romantic adventure and Western films. Throughout a career spanning over 3 decades, Gary Cooper portrayed countless characters who became cinematic history. He was often cast in roles representing core American values, integrity, steadfastness, and courage. Who could forget his portrayal of the courageous sharpshooter Alvin York in Sergeant York, 1941? This role, based on the true story of a World War I hero, earned him his first Academy Award for Best Actor. His role as the brave Sheriff Will Kane in the classic Western High Noon 1952 was another peak. As a lone man facing an approaching gang of outlaws, Cooper brilliantly conveyed the complexities of fear, responsibility, and dignity, a performance that rightfully brought him his second Oscar. Even his portrayal of legendary baseball player Lou Gehrig in The Pride of the Yankees, 1942, stands as a testament to his superb ability to embody inspiring real-life figures. Gary Cooper had a distinctive acting style often described as natural and understated. He didn't rely on excessive dialogue or theatrical gestures. Instead, he conveyed emotion and meaning through his eyes, subtle expressions, and powerful presence. He was one of the few actors capable of making silences deeply meaningful. This very style helped him become a role model for many generations of actors. However, Cooper's personal life was also full of complexities. Although he had a long marriage to Veronica Balfe and a daughter, Maria Cooper Janis, his private life also had tumultuous periods, including rumors of extramarital affairs. Despite this, he managed to maintain a public image as a calm and respectable gentleman. In the late 1950s, Gary Cooper's health began to decline. He battled cancer for an extended period, but maintained a discreet attitude, choosing not to publicize his illness. Gary Cooper passed away in May 1961, just a few days after his 60th birthday. These roles built his on-screen heroic image, a courageous man facing adversity, always overcoming difficulties. But this very success and unassailable image created immense pressure, concealing the deep wounds he carried from his days in uniform. His life stands as a testament to the complexity of an icon, both a screen hero and a real person with silent struggles. What were the hidden demons? If the silver screen was a glorious battlefield, then Gary Cooper's real life was another kind of war zone where he faced an invisible enemy, post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD). Although the term wasn't common in his era, its symptoms were clearly evident in this soldier's life and choices. After enduring grueling months in the military, the memories of war didn't fade. Instead, they became relentless demons. At night, when the stage lights dimmed, nightmares and flashbacks flooded back, replaying the horrific scenes he had witnessed. The sounds of gunfire, screams, and images of fallen comrades weren't just memories. They were vivid obsessions, causing him insomnia, anxiety, and a constant state of high alert. His quiet room suddenly became a trench, and every sudden noise could startle him, bringing back the extreme fear of the battlefield. Even more brutal was the pressure to be a hero. As a star and icon of courage, Gary Cooper wasn't allowed to show weakness. Society lauded him as an indomitable hero, an ideal role model, and this expectation became an enormous burden. He constantly had to wear a mask of resilience, concealing his deep inner wounds. This created a stark and tragic contrast on screen. He could easily defeat his enemies, but in his personal life he was powerless against his own invisible pains. This inner struggle not only affected his mental health, but also negatively impacted his personal relationships. Psychological trauma made him distant, cold, and difficult to express emotions to his loved ones. The change in his personality, from a lively man to someone withdrawn and less communicative, left those around him puzzled and helpless. They saw him physically present, but his mind was somewhere far away where terrifying memories resided. This lack of emotional connection created an invisible gap, making him lonely even when surrounded by family. Gary Cooper's later role choices also reflected his inner battle. While still playing heroes in those roles, one could discern a complexity, a deep sadness hidden behind his eyes. It was no longer just pure courage, but also the loneliness and torment of a man who had experienced too much loss. Audiences saw a solitary Will Kane standing alone in town, facing danger by himself. But few knew that this loneliness might not have been merely acting, but also the real loneliness of Gary Cooper, a man trapped between glory and inner tragedy. Moreover, his pain also manifested through self-destructive habits. To cope with anxiety and insomnia, he turned to alcohol and cigarettes as a way to relieve stress. These habits, though perhaps offering temporary solace, gradually destroyed his physical health, a cruel, vicious cycle that many veterans face. His gaunt body and sunken eyes were physical evidence of an unending internal struggle. One could say that Gary Cooper's life is a powerful testament to the brutality of war. It doesn't just claim lives, but also leaves invisible scars, persistent psychological traumas that silently destroy the lives of those who return. His on-screen greatness could not erase his pains, and public admiration could not heal his wounds. Gary Cooper was not just a hero in films. He was a real person, with real pains, real wounds, and real vulnerability. And it is these aspects that truly define his depth and greatness, because they show that even the strongest among us have wounds that need to be understood. Consequences and the silent struggle. The demons from the battlefield didn't just exist in nightmares. They became deeply ingrained in Gary Cooper's life, shaping his choices and his ultimate fate. The most obvious consequence was his turn to substances as a means of escaping pain. Alcohol and cigarettes, while offering temporary solace, became a cruel cycle, gradually destroying his physical health. His gaunt body and sunken eyes weren't merely signs of aging, but physical evidence of an unending internal battle. His illustrious career also couldn't heal his psychological wounds. Every award received, every thunderous applause, only increased the pressure to maintain a perfect public image. The fear of exposing his weakness, his inner vulnerability, became a colossal burden for this man of steel. The higher he ascended in glory, the more isolated he became in his own struggle. This isn't a unique story belonging solely to Gary Cooper. It's the story of millions of American veterans. They are the ones who witnessed things that ordinary minds cannot endure. Think of a young soldier returning from Iraq or Afghanistan, sitting silently in a cafe corner, his eyes distant, staring into nothingness, reliving the moment a comrade fell. Or an elderly veteran who fought at Iwo Jima or Normandy, waking up screaming every night from the echoing sounds of artillery in his head. These stories don't just exist in films, they are present in our lives right beside us. One veteran once shared, "After returning from World War II, I kept dreaming of my friends falling beside me. For years I dared not tell anyone. People wanted to see a hero, not a weakling." Or the confession from a veteran's wife. "After my husband came back from the war, he became much quieter. He never talked about the battlefield. Some nights he would scream in his sleep. I didn't understand until I read about PTSD. I realized he was still in his own war." These stories are the clearest proof that soldiers don't just fight on the battlefield. They continue to fight themselves long after the guns fall silent. Their pain isn't a weakness, but a testament to the brutality of war. If you lived through that era, if you witnessed soldiers returning from war, you'll understand that the deepest wounds are not always visible. Perhaps among your friends and family, there's a veteran who returned and carried unspoken pains. They might be fathers, uncles, brothers who always appeared strong and resilient. But behind that exterior, there might be long sleepless nights, recurring nightmares, and an unshareable loneliness. Thus, Gary Cooper's death isn't just the passing of a legend, but a poignant reminder of the invisible legacies of war. His life shows us that even the strongest among us have wounds that need to be understood. It poses a question to us. Have we truly listened to our returning soldiers? Gary Cooper's story is a reminder for our generation. Let's listen, understand, and appreciate our soldiers, those who have carried and continue to carry invisible burdens. For retired soldiers, perhaps it's time they can shed their resilient facade, seek healing, and share their stories. Their greatest battle wasn't on the battlefield, but the silent war within themselves. And now it's time for those stories to be told, for those pains to be soothed.